Okay, hello everybody. So last class, this was kind of where we stopped. I will not go through in too much detail because I want to save the time of people who watched the previous video. So just moving ahead into this next two stanzas here. Notice that it's very nicely identically almost started. So it starts off with my uncle's soul, right? So it's a very nice repetition over here. Okay, so in the next stanza, which we will call this is our fourth stanza, so we have our fourth, fifth, okay, and we will have our sixth and seventh here. So we're going to cover all these few remaining stanzas in this particular video, and then you would be able to have a good grasp of at least what this poem is talking about and what you can expect to understand. Now, in the fourth one, it says, My Uncle Sol's farm failed because the chickens ate the vegetables. So my Uncle Sol had a chicken farm till the skunks ate the chicken. When my Uncle Sol had a skunk farm, but the skunks caught cold and died, and so my Uncle Sol imitated the skunks in a subtle manner. So a few words that I think you may be confused on. So imitated simply just means copied or replicated. And then we have skunks. So skunks is basically like an animal that has black and white stripes. If you were going for a little bit more of a dictionary definition, that's going to be a cat-sized American mammal that is basically black and white striped fur. Okay, so I hope this has made you understand a little bit more here. So my Uncle Sol's farm at the very beginning failed because the chickens ate the vegetables. So he started off with a vegetables farm, right? But obviously it didn't hit the successes because of the chickens that ate the vegetables, right? Then he had a chicken farm. And he didn't hit the successes because the skunks ate the chicken. He then had a skunk farm. And then it died because of the weather was too cold and they died. So these were the three things that he did. Now, one thing to note here is just after these three things, what happens next is his uncle imitated the skunks in a subtle manner, right? Or by drowning himself in the water tank. So a way to understand this is his uncle, he imitated the skunks. So what the uncle's nephew is saying is that the Uncle Sol committed suicide. And how we know this is because he imitated. So he copied what a skunk would usually do, right? So a skunk, you have to imagine what can a skunk even do? Think about the animal. So when we think about skunks, right? So skunks are basically animals that can swim and they can use water, right? So those animals is what Uncle Sol replicated. So he went inside water and he killed himself. And this is also further, I'd say, reinvigorated by saying that he drowned himself. So this is telling you that Uncle Sol died by going into the water, right? He didn't have enough oxygen. Obviously, he died. The reason why he died was those three chains of causes that led to his death. Now, something to wonder here is maybe if he went into the singing career where he was more passionate about, even though he failed for 3 times, he wouldn't have gone through the committal suicide pathway. But because he went through this pathway where he was running behind money instead of passion, he was running behind the luxuries that he saw in the farming field. That's why he decided to pursue the field. And in this particular story, he's gone through 3 failures in his life, and he was given the label born failure, right? So even his nephew has called him a born failure. And that's only because he had 3 failures, and it's basically in a field that it's basically a choice of career that Uncle Sol had that the society didn't expect him to go into. And because it didn't align with the society's expectations and he chose to go into a different direction, he was more prone in the public's eye. And because of that, it's possible that he went through a lot in terms of being pulled down. And that might have led to his low self of confidence, lack of belief in himself. And this can be actually even highlights it by the fact that his own nephew calls him a born failure. And that says a lot, right? Because if someone in the family calls him a born failure, we don't know that what the society might be calling it. It could be even worse things that he could have had to hear. And because of that, he must have felt very low self confidence. And maybe because of lack of support, he decided to die, which is committal suicide. Okay, moving forward into this part. So I started off a little bit just to have a good continuation of what was happening. But going further, it says, but somebody who had given my uncle's soul a Victor Victrola. A Victor Victrola is basically a phonograph. And a phonograph is technically like a record player. Okay, that's what it is. So somebody, when Uncle Soul was alive, somebody gave him a Victrola and records while he lived. So he probably recorded all his songs into this record player, which also highlights that he, again, was very passionate about singing, but he simply didn't go into that career because he thought it didn't give him the luxuries that he needed, right? And that's very interesting because he thought luxury was somewhere more in the materialistic or the money side of things, but he didn't consider luxury as maybe living in the praises of people, right? So luxury can be seen as two ways. It could be seen as maybe having a lot of money, fame, and things like that. But another luxury is maybe having like the audience love, maybe having the audience respect, right? So he never considered those things as luxuries. But in any case, here we are. So somebody who had given my uncle Sole Victor Victrola and records while he lived presented to him on the auspicious occasion of his decease. So the auspicious occasion is his funeral and of his death. So what is happening here is basically the record player where he recorded all his songs while he was alive. It was being played at his funeral. A scrumptious, not to mention a splendiferous funeral with tall boys in black gloves and flowers and everything. So it shows that he had a very good funeral, as in like it was very well prepared, everything was good. Let's see here. Scrumptious. So scrumptious, what might that refer to? So scrumptious just means, yes. Okay, so scrumptious could mean as being very, you can think of it as being very delicious, right? Like good amount of food. You can think of it that way. But that's really what it means, right? Like you have good accessories, very stunning, as in captivating, right? So it's all those words. And then here, splendiferous means splendid. Okay? And then here, I remember we all cried like the Missouri. The Missouri, you can think of it like the Missouri River, right? So everybody cried as in the same volume of water as you would find in the Missouri River. And that's what this is telling us, that everybody cried a lot, everybody mourned a lot for his death. When my Uncle Soul's coffin lurched because somebody pressed a button, right? So maybe his coffin's on the top with some kind of machine, hold a crane or something holding the box, and this is the soil, and it was lurched down. It was pulled down because someone pressed a button here, right? So it was pulled down into the soil. So now it's gone into the soil, basically. This is Uncle Soul. And down went Uncle Soul and went and started a worm farm. Now, what does that mean and why is that in brackets? Is because that's giving us extra pieces of information, right? So now the coffin's gone down and his body is inside, right? His body's inside, and basically now his body can feed the worms, and that's why it has started a worm farm. Now the brackets can tell us that this is something people can't see. And this is basically everything, all the things that were not with the brackets is what people can see. And what this kind of tells us is that Again, although the Uncle Soul was born a failure, at the end he didn't fail because his body was the one that was allowed to create that farm, right? So at the end, although he didn't get the luxuries that he wanted, his end goal was not achieved, but he was still able to have a farm at the end. He was able to create a worm farm. But again, this is in brackets because people can't see this. People only saw the born failure part. People only saw the failures that he had to go through, right? So this is basically the moral of the story is not everybody loses, right? Not everybody loses. Everybody achieves success at some point. Some people would achieve it while they are living at life, while some people might achieve it at the end after their death or during their death, right? So it's basically giving the moral of the story, which is nobody loses all the time. So to keep this video short and just within about 10 to 11 minutes here, I'm going to stop here, and I hope this video has helped you understand the poem a little bit better. If you would like me to cover more analysis of other poems, feel free to let me know. The only reason why I've covered this poem is because I think this poem is one of the most confusing ones out of everything else in the DSE syllabus, so I decided to go with this one. If there's any other specific ones in different years of syllabus, or maybe 2025, or any other syllabus or poems you want me to cover, feel free to mention it in the comments section below, and I would be more than happy to create a video of analysis of that. And with that, we will stop here, and I will see you in my next future videos. Thank you. Have a good one.